views and opinions are not necessarily that of Beyond the Strange, hosts, guests, and affiliated networks.
You have everything of a great conspiracy. How did I get?
Yeah, it's kind of a creepy place, you know, because there's no light at all.
A lot of experiments out there.
Plutonium, nuclear weapon.
Nuclear destruction. They're just balls of light.
What the hell did I just?
They're just balls of light. What the hell is that?
Plutonium, nuclear weapon.
Nuclear destruction. How did I get? You have everything of a great conspiracy.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Strange. And now back on Google Hangouts. Excuse me, the YouTube live Hangouts. My name is Dave Cruz. I am your host, and we are live right now. And I've got a great panel for you tonight. I got a great show for you tonight. We're just going to be chilling tonight. It's just going to be so laid back. It's ridiculous. So tonight with us, we have Adam Tarsis. Adam, say hi to everybody.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad you all could join us for the discussion.
Adam, I'm glad you're here tonight. Thank you very much.
Good to be here.
Also, we have with us Jerry Luciferius Cthulhu. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
All right, and I love the mask, by the way.
Thank you. $5, you can get one of your own.
Right on. Listening to the show is Lynn in Oz. So she's out and about right now, but she's listening to the show. Thank you for joining us, Lynn. Also with us tonight, we have Joe Cerletti. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, Dave. Thank you so much for having me on tonight.
Absolutely, man. It's a pleasure, and I'm really glad that you're here tonight. So, tonight our topics are going to be pretty much just, roulette. And this show tonight is just one of those shows where we're just, like I said, we're going to have fun. We're just going to, go over a few things and stuff. One of the things I just want to mention about the show is you can find it on Twitter at Strange Days 2015. Our hashtag is hashtag the letter B, the word strange. It's hashtag be strange. Right now we are on YouTube. I posted the links on our Facebook page, beyondthestrange.com, at Beyond the Strange Facebook. Also, we are in Google Plus. So you can find the link on the Facebook page. If you go to the link, you'll see that there is a chat going on right now, and there seems to be quite a few people in there. And we got Trisha, and we have CW Cantor. How you doing? CD Denver or C Denver. How's it going, guys? Thank you for joining us tonight. So yeah, it's going to be great. But most of the information is usually at www.beyondthestrange.com. It's not there right now because I did this a last minute, and we'll get to the show here in a second. But I just want to get all the information out. I do have Skype going, so if you want to call in through Skype, the number is 1-707-200-3520. Again, Skype. The number is 1-707-200-3520. And just hit me up on Messenger or Facebook or something. Let me know you're calling in, and that way I know who you are, and we'll get you on the Skype ID. The ID for Skype is Strange Days 2015, and that way I'll know who you are, so I can add you. How about that? All right. So, first topic right off the bat. I believe we are being doused with chemtrails. Dun dun dun. It's it really. I posted a picture on Facebook, and I've been getting a lot of people have been looking at this. Such people as Brad Olson and shamanic healer Holly Cook. Jerry has commented on it. Rich Giordano, a friend of mine who has the AZ UFO show and the Richard Giordano show. And the good thing about this is these pictures, you can tell there's something going on with these pictures. First, I want to bring in Jerry and get his 2 cents, because I think he takes a skeptic view with chemtrails, and I'd like to get his take on it. Jerry, what do you think about this chemtrail phenomena?
Well, my take on it is that it is something tangible. It's something going on, right? I can witness it. I see it happening, but there doesn't seem to be any tie back to actual reality. The planes don't show up on radar. They're never branded, although a few have been branded, but usually they're nondescript and they're spraying, what look like chemicals in the air, but you just can't really find any source of these planes. So I find that interesting. I don't know what it is. I've even heard people suggest that it's possibly an illusion of sorts, maybe like a UFO kind of thing, but cloaked as a plane. Who knows?
That particular, it's almost like you can't really see the plane. You can see that there's something there, and it's something white. And I've taken pictures like this before where it doesn't look like a plane at all. I've blown up the picture a few times, not this one particularly, but previous ones.
Right, exactly.
They look like a torpedo, right? I mean, it almost looks like, there's just like something like a missile.
They all kind of exhibit different features, right? And I've even seen videos of orbs shooting at the chemtrails coming out, or whatever is coming out of the plane.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even know how true those are, but again, that would feed into the, it's a UFO kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. Joe, what is your take on chemtrails?
I just want to add one more thing before. The reason for the UFO obviously would be the transhumanism agenda, of course, that they're conditioning on us. Yeah. So, I mean, it ties into that.
Yeah, we're going to get to that here in a second, because I think Joe knows where I'm going with that. Joe, the chemtrail phenomena, what is your take on that? Because I feel that, it is part of a UFO agenda, like Jerry was just saying.
Well, yes, Dave, it does a little bit tie into the UFO agenda, but more so into the consciousness suppression agenda, which ultimately ties into the UFO agenda. Many doctors, even today, now agree that there is something going on with chemtrails. They are targeting our food supplies. They're targeting the air we breathe. They're targeting the water supplies. It's making people sick. And it's, from what I've heard, it's also calcifying the pineal gland. So what they're doing is they're targeting our bodies and our consciousness here through these chemtrails. If you listen to Dr. Group, he's a regular guest on the Alex Jones show. He has a website, www.globalhealingcenter.com. He has a lot of really useful information on how to combat the effects of chemtrails.
Very interesting, Joe. And yes, I wanted to mention that Joe is the host and producer of his own show, Zero Dark Radio. You can find it on the YouTube channel. And Jerry's got a show coming out on YouTube as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But Adam, what is your take on the chemtrail phenomenon? Because also, to go along with what Joe said, I believe that there's a new, I don't know how new it is, but I've just heard it recently. It's been around for a little while. It's called Morgellons disease, and it's not just something that looks. I mean, it looks like a horrendous rash, but it also seems like what ties into the UFO agenda, where it's transhumanism. There's these little fibers that start growing out of your skin, and it starts producing organic material. What do you know about that, Adam?
As far as chemtrails go, I think there's definitely an agenda being fed there. I agree. You know, our air, our food supply, our water, these are all things that are targeted right along with our consciousness and our ability to understand, perceive, and process the data around us. And the thing that I think is interesting about the Morgellons is that some of the articles that I've read recently have suggested that not only do some of those fibers are producing organic compounds, but some of them have also been producing inorganic compounds, silicon-based compounds, and sometimes I think there was some mention of heavy elements in a couple of the articles I've read. I haven't done a great deal of research into it as yet, but I do agree that it's definitely some serious transhumanism happening right there.
Yeah, there really is. There's been some YouTube videos where I can't remember the gal's name, but she talks about how these fibers turn into these types of tubes, and in the tubes it starts creating these little organic creatures. They are actually coming to life from this Morgellons disease or from the chemtrails, and it just really seems like it's bizarre and it's horrendous at the same time to know that our bodies are starting to change like that. And it, part of the agenda, of course, for the non-benevolent extraterrestrials that are out there, it seems like this is what they're trying to do, maybe terraform this planet into what they're used to. Anybody have comments on that?
It's interesting to me, you're saying how the Morgellons will manifest actual functioning organisms. That sounds very parasitic to me. So I think under the assumption that there is a form of parasitic activity taking place, that sounds a lot like not terraforming the planet, but definitely that sounds like a form of bioforming. So I think that somewhat must go hand in hand with the agenda that seems to be taking place to radically alter our environment.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities to what they could be spraying. I mean, I've heard that it's heavy aluminum to basically blanket the air so that our radar systems have trouble picking up certain stealth fighters. I've heard that they're spraying us, like I said earlier, our food supplies, our water supplies and stuff to make us sick. I've heard that they're spraying the air to calcify our pineal gland, and I think it's a toxic mixture, a toxic cocktail, if you will, of just bad news for human beings here on Earth.
Jerry, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what I believe Adam was saying about the transhumanism agenda. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the research of Harold Kautzvella. Have you looked into his stuff about chemtrails?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so he basically has done chemical analysis. He's a scientist, a chemist rather, and he's done chemical analysis on the content of what he claims is chemtrail spray, and he's found in there uh, basically a fungus organism that an organism that reproduces like a fungus, but he also claims it has some kind of spider DNA in it as well. It's not a fully functioning organism, but it's a self-assembling nano-organism. So his theory is that uh, these nanoparticulates get into your system and are then used by your body to rebuild your nervous system and your cell structure, your DNA cell structure, should your body be deprived of the minerals it needs at the time. So say you need magnesium to rebuild a cell and there's not enough magnesium in your body, but there's some of this nanoparticulate, it will use that to rebuild whatever it's building. This is what this Vela guy has found out. And
what was his name again, Jerry?
It's Harold Kautz Vela.
Harold Kautz Vela. Okay,
we'll definitely
have to. Put it in chat. We'll have to put the links up. That's very interesting.
And it goes further. There's, I think the person you were talking about was Elena Freeland, who's written a book called, or I forget what it's actually called, but it's about what she calls full spectrum dominance, which is basically the chemtrail sprays, right, are in the air. They get into your body, you breathe them in, and when they're hit with certain frequencies, they emit a piezoelectric effect, right, which can be picked up by radar signals or cell towers or whatever. Mm-hmm. And you basically get that. Do you remember in the Dark Knight when they turned on the cell phones and did like a sonar for the whole city?
Right.
Right. So picture that, but on the worldwide scale, because you're pinging out these piezoelectric nanoparticles that you've breathed in for 30 years or whatever, right? And they're hitting us with frequency waves from the cell towers. So that's got to glow somewhere, right? That's the other side of the coin there, is surveillance.
Yeah, and again, I totally believe it's a transhumanism agenda. Another recent show I was listening to my friend Dave Scott's radio program called Spaced Out Radio, and he had a guest on there who was talking about how she believes vaccines are also part of this transhumanism agenda. So kind of segueing into that a little bit more, the theory is that these vaccines are filled with these nanoparticles, somewhat like what's happening with the chemtrail phenomena. It gets into your system and it starts to just mutate, our DNA. So what they're doing now is, they're saying that they're vaccines, but they're also, putting in these particles to change our DNA. Adam, do you feel that the vaccines are part of the agenda?
Before I say anything about that, I don't think it's out of bounds because we were talking about, I mean, even if we're just talking about nanotechnology, we're talking about a level of technology that we're barely grasping. And I don't think it's, allegedly. I don't think it's out of bounds to see technology through the scope of biology and organic chemistry. And so I think that some of the things that we're encountering, that we, where nanoparticles is a very generic term, and I think it might be appropriate to view this as a literal biological weapon that is, it's organic technology. And as we know, life resonates. We all resonate. We all function and transmit through frequency and vibration. And so it is, it seems very likely to me that you could build organic technology to respond to not only specific biological processes and chemicals, but to specific frequencies as well. So that fits right into the possibilities of not only tracking, but bioforming and altering your DNA. I don't think they would really have to mutate our DNA that much. I mean, we as a human species, allegedly, are just really beginning to figure our DNA out. And if we're going by the advanced alien technology scheme of thought, then I think we're looking at a level of understanding about human genetics that goes past simple mutation and into full-on reprogramming. I mean, we're just beginning to understand RNA. We're really just discovering that there's a second, a third layer of DNA in our DNA. So if they're already privy to these things, as some of the theories suggest that we were genetically engineered forward in our evolution, I don't think it's out of bounds to think that those things are in some way connected, especially when you have a population of people that have been taught for generations that when you're sick, you go to the doctor and he will fix you. And so you go to the doctor to get fixed. You don't go to the doctor to get better because you have this weird belief that your culture has given you that you're in some way broken, instead of, pop some vitamin C and take a nap. You don't do that. You go down, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, we have immunizations now, and that's fantastic. And it's been really great that we've eradicated some disease. But then again, I see people all the time that go for a simple flu shot. I have seen people die from that. I have worked in healthcare as a registered nurse off and on for 23 years. And so I've seen a great deal of that. I think vaccinations can be as harmful as they are good, depending on the biology and chemistry of the person they are injected into.
Exactly, Adam. And
I've never.
That's kind of where I'm going with the conspiracy part of this.
So I think I'm sorry. I was going to say I think I've read a couple of times that there are specific genetic groups that are targeted specifically, and I think that would be a really easy way to target specific genetic groups, because you can create a formula that will only react with a specific type of DNA.
There you go. Joe, do you have any comments about these vaccinations? There's been lots of debate whether or not they're good or harmful. There's also a movie out there called Vaxxed that people are talking about. I personally haven't seen it yet, but I am getting around to it. I've just got so much going on right now. I'm glad we even got the show off the ground tonight. But in your experience, and I know you have a lot of experience, especially what's been going on lately with the cover-ups and what's happening with our government, doesn't seem like they want us to know too much. Do you believe that these vaccines are just part of an evil scheme, if you will?
Well, there's no question that it's part of an evil scheme. They're taking it right out of Nazi Germany textbooks. The forced inoculations, the laws that have been put in place where kids will be literally taken from their parents if they don't accept a drug that the state says that they want to shoot into your child with a needle. They're going to take your child away. Now, that's absolute insanity to me. And if you do tests of these things that they're shooting into us, into our kids, it's filled with heavy metals, stuff that's not good for kids or human beings, cancer-causing stuff.
Formaldehyde.
Formaldehyde. It's absolute poison, and it's a racket. They're making money off of it. There's no question about it that there's a conspiracy with the forced inoculations, and vaccines are actually one of the scariest topics out there because people just don't see what's really going on here.
Go ahead, Jerry. I know you want to chime in a little bit more about this.
Yes and no. I mean, I don't think the vaccine themselves are necessarily bad. The carrier, the solution they're put in is bad. That's where you find the formaldehyde, the mercury, the aluminum hydroxides, and the rest of the crap that's in there is in the juice that the vaccine floats in, So that is probably on purpose. So for what reason, I can't say.
I have a theory.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
It makes sense to me from a medical perspective that if you're creating...
Adam, sorry to interrupt. just everybody, we are going to go to a break in about 5 minutes.
Okay. If you view it from a medical perspective and from a scientific perspective, you're looking at creating vaccines for diseases that exist. So you're going to create vaccines because you have a portion of the population that absolutely you want to remain healthy. So I don't think there's anything wrong necessarily with the vaccine. And putting it into a vehicle fluid, you have control over how that's mixed. So, there's a vehicle fluid that's for the general population to tone it down and bring it down. And then there's the delivery fluid that goes to, the cabal and its mini onions. So I think there's that where the vaccine itself is probably completely viable. So I agree with Jerry that it's the delivery solution that is the issue, and that is something that's easily controlled. Because whoever's getting the shot, the only person who knows what's in that syringe is the person who filled it. And if you're giving shots,
I even argued that's not true. They have no idea what's in it.
No. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective, if you're one of the people who's in the know and you're giving out shots, you're not going to give out shots to the portion of the population that is the elite, and you're not going to give them the crappy shots, is what I'm saying. So
right. But this whole thing that this is a conspiracy that bothers me because it's too big.
Right,
yeah,
but
it sounds huge.
Jerry, Jerry, that is your take on it. But right now, it's Adam's take, and that's what we're.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We want to get. I wasn't
Adam's
trying to argue.
First. Oh no, I
didn't
think you were.
No, but I do want to hear Adam finish his thought.
I'm just thinking, if it's about the delivery solution, and if the vaccine itself is viable. If you really needed to control it, there's a couple ways to do that. You do what we talked about earlier, and you engineer the delivery solution to react only with specific DNA or specific types of biochemicals for a specific spectrum of the population. That's not outside the realm of possibility, even a little bit. And then you have either clean injections, or every injection has the same thing in it, but only the people who will react to the solution's poison, so to speak, are the ones who will be affected negatively. Because I think Jerry's right. I think to do it the other way around, where you've just got control over the good stuff and the bad stuff, I don't think that makes a lot of sense from a distribution point of view. I mean, if you're going to be the mad genius and take over the world, I think you want to go with the simpler route. So sorry.
No, absolutely. And
but imagine having to keep. I was going to imagine having to keep two sets of everything: safe stuff and non-safe stuff.
Yeah. See that? You're right. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Jerry,
I
did
would
you
go
want
with the.
No, I just wanted to talk to the conspiracy point that it's a conspiracy. I just think it's too large to be a conspiracy, which makes me think it's either done by something else or an overseeing group. Let's put it that way. If you want to call it. Whatever, the Nazis in Antarctica, whoever those people, what I mean, whatever it is, it's not the world government as we think of it that's doing it, I don't think.
No, it's big pharma that's doing it, and they've totally poisoned probably 90% of the homes in America, if not more. So it's a total catastrophe.
I do have to agree with Joe there. It is a conspiracy with big pharma, and it doesn't even stop at these vaccines. It just seems like they're trying to definitely poison our society, and we can get into a little bit more of that in our next segment. But why don't we go ahead and stop here? We're going to take a quick break, everyone, and when we come back, we do have a special guest that just joined us in a minute. We have the Reverend John Pulk, who is now the host of Quantum Hologram Matrix. So this is Beyond the Strange. I'm your host, Dave Cruz, and we're on Hangouts tonight. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
New World Order got you down? Are you tired of Bigfoot ruining your camping trip? Sick of pesky otherworldly entities messing with your crops? Call Beyond the Strange at 707-200-3520. Again, that's 707-200-3520.
Every region of the world and most countries can go back in their history and trace their origins, traditions, and religions to a creator god or an angel from the sky, the stars, heaven, or even underground from the underworld. This is the common story of extraterrestrials seeding our planet. My name is Reverend John M. Pulk. I am an international metaphysical minister, a Reiki master teacher, and a medium. My book is Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an alien. The premise of my book is that there is a real God and that Yahweh is a creator God alien who is indicating he is ready to reveal his alien origins to humanity at this time.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Beyond the Strange. I am your host, Dave Cruz, and tonight it is the return of the Hangouts. Tonight's just one of those shows where I just wanted to do one, and it's been really cool tonight. I want to thank again my guests Adam and Jerry and Joe. You guys are awesome, and we're going to get into a lot more stuff. I also want to point out the people in the chat and YouTube. Thank you for showing up. I'm really appreciative of you listening to the show and following Beyond the Strange, and we've got a lot more coming up in the future for Beyond the Strange. And that's about all I want to talk about that right now. I don't want to really get too hot-winded, but you can follow Beyond the Strange at Strange Days 2015 in Twitter. Go to our Facebook page, Beyond the Strange. Our website is www.beyondthestrange.com. And finally, I want to get on to our next segment. We do have with us the Reverend John Polk, and I was talking to him earlier about the subject, ghosts. So, Reverend John, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And congratulations on a very, very successful show that you have started on the, I want to say, Strange Days Radio Network.
Well, it is on your network, and so I do sincerely appreciate the fact that you've bestowed this honor upon me, and I'm excited about it. I have a lot of learning to do, but I feel like the first 3 shows have gone pretty good so far.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm having a blast actually playing producer, and well, not just playing producer, I'm actually producing. It's something that I would have never thought I'd be doing, 20, 30 years ago, but I'm loving it, having fun. And yeah, thanks again, John. It's real fun. And The show's great. That show is what time and what day?
Okay, every Wednesday, 8 to 10 Eastern and 5 to 7 Pacific.
And what do we normally talk about?
ET, paranormal, spirituality. The first one was on Mars and lunar anomalies with Karen Christine Patrick and Brett Colin Shepard, who are both experts on Mars and lunar anomalies, in other words, artificial structures on either one of those celestial bodies. And then, the following week, which was the 21st, we had Sheldon Bird, who's a Native American Indian who channels extra dimensionals, extraterrestrials, and for being very young, he's very wise beyond his years, and he's under the wing of Michael Lee Hill, who's an Anunnaki contactee himself,
right.
And he had some amazing testimony that he shared with us. And then 2 days ago we had Ray Hernandez of Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. Mm-hmm. And what I really liked about all three shows is that they were all very different, with very different guests. We didn't talk about the same kind of things at all on any of the shows. And I think that's really good. And then this coming Wednesday, we have a pranic healer who's going to go through the concepts of pranic healing and some other different facets of spirituality. His name is Dan Schmutz, who also does, I don't know the exact term for it, but he's a scientist that works for the state government doing analysis on water systems here in the state of Florida. And then and he's a pranic healer, spiritual healer. He also can read auras. Like, he can look at you, and he uses the terms darts, daggers, and spears that he can see sticking in your aura. And often those darts, daggers, and spears are because of some kind of psychological, mental, emotional issue that you might be going through. So I don't want to talk too much about it, but anyway, look forward to a really, really great guest, dynamic speaker, and it ought to be a very interesting show next Wednesday.
Yes, it does. And that's the great part about doing the show with you, John, is I get to hear it all, the whole show. I'm there. You don't hear me, but that's okay. I don't want to talk. So that's the cool part about producing the show, is I get to sit back, just pay attention to all the breaks and all that stuff, but I get to listen to all the good stuff, and it's really fascinating. John, you got a great show. I just wanted to thank you again for being part of the Strange Days Radio Network, and you're awesome, man. So let's get into this, and talking about spirituality, I have a story for you. We didn't really get into it. We talked a little bit before the show, but I wanted to mention tonight about an experience that happened, and it's not with me, but with my family while they were in Texas. So what happened is they had an encounter with some sort of paranormal phenomena. What had happened is they were coming back from some other families, another part of our families. Caller, can you please mute? It's a little loud. Thank you very much. We'll get to you in a second. And so, John, what I was getting at is this paranormal happening. What happened, and maybe you can explain what might have happened, is my family broke down, and a man, his wife, and two kids were in a truck. They came up to them, asked them, "Do you need any help? Is there anything we can do for you? Is everything okay?" And my cousin turned to them and said, "Our water hose broke, pretty much. So we need to get to a shop or something." And so the man's like, "Oh, well, I'll be right back." And so where they had actually stopped to visit was this mission. It's an old Spanish mission. They went in, they gave offering, they did whatever the Catholics do. I'm not Catholic, so I don't know. But they did whatever, and then when they came out, that's what happened. They had problems with their vehicle. Well, the truck, along with the guy and his wife and kids, they drove like right on the side of the mission, and this is at night. So there's lights, definitely lights. They went over. He drove over to the mission, probably about 40, 50 feet away. I am not kidding. They said this. Well, this is what they said. They were so spooked when they told me this story that when the lights went off, the guy never came back, and when they went to go look for him, they disappeared. The car the truck disappeared. The man, the wife, the kids, gone. Never came back. Now, that phenomenon to me, it would seem like they're a ghost. And so this is the topic I wanted to start off with as far as the topic goes. What do you say about that, John?
I'd have to concur that they were ghosts. I got a number of stories that I could attach to that, but I used to date this girl, and somebody in her family was dying, and her brother goes outside of the hospital to have a cigarette, and this man and his wife come up, and they're wearing like these old clothes from like the 40s or 50s, and he couldn't help but take notice of it. And they're both smoking cigarettes with him, and they put their hands on him and tell him it's going to be okay, and he starts crying. And when he looks up to see them, because he lowered his head to cry, they were gone. And he walked back in the hospital, and I forget who it was in his family, but this individual was okay and was able to leave the hospital that night, and it shocked everybody. So there's also ghost trains that have been seen in and around the desert Southwest, and Texas is definitely a part of that. Ghost trains, sometimes these spiritual energies will leave what you call an imprint. That family associated with that vehicle that had broken down, it's possible they all died in some kind of car wreck together,
Mm-hmm.
and that you have your soul, which goes to the godlight, and you have your spirit, which stays behind with the body, and that's what leaves the imprint. And it's possible that they got in some kind of fatal car accident, and that their spirits are still here in the earth plane and visit with people in times of need, because they were in a time of need and perhaps nobody was there for them. But now it seems like it's important to them to be there for somebody that needs help, even though they really couldn't help them. But they wanted to affect your family's life, and it obviously did.
But it seems like it's not that they wanted anything, it wasn't anything bad. Like you said,
Oh, no.
it did seem like they wanted to help. Now, I've seen this in different movies. I've heard stories about this kind of thing. And like you said, so the imprint, it's kind of like a recording, right? It just continues on and on and on pretty much for eternity. Is that how it works?
You could look at it like that. And here's an example. My house is built on an old Indian reservation. So, and there's definitely multiple imprints left here by multiple spirits. And then also the tribal village leaves a spiritual imprint also, because the village will take on the energy of the tribe. So yeah, there's definitely a monster spiritual imprint here on this property in which I live. And there's a number of stories associated with that I could tell.
That's pretty fascinating. We do have a caller who's on the line right now, and I'm hoping that they're still with us. Caller, are you there? You're on Beyond the Strange. This is Dave. I think we lost our caller, unfortunately. But anyway, so let me go to our panel tonight. Jerry, what do you say about
Dave,
Oh,
Dave.
oh,
Sorry.
oh.
No, I'm here. I updated. It's Rick, by the way. I
Hey,
updated my
Rick.
iPhone. The OS is completely different, so I have to unlock my phone while driving on the 5 getting out of Seattle right now. So sorry
Right
about
on.
that. I apologize to the listeners. And hello, Beyonders and everybody.
Well, welcome to the show, Rick, and thanks for joining us. I know you're driving, and it's late, and yeah, I'm sure that a new OS on your phone just doesn't make things any easier for you. But did you get to hear the story that I was telling John about the ghost?
Yeah, that's a really cool story. And and that's one of the things that people don't seem to understand is not all spirits are evil. They're not all, they're not here to scare you or anything like that. Sometimes, like he said, they're here to help. And I believe if they were a helpful and kind person in life, then they'll continue to be that. And I think it's good.
Now, if for everyone's information, I just want to introduce or reintroduce Rick. Rick is actually my creative producer and co-executive producer of Beyond Strange. But not only that, he's also part of a family investigation team, and he has a lot of experience. He's done ghost hunting and cryptid hunting with his dad. So there's definitely a lot of experience, and whenever I have something, I go right to Rick. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that you do know a lot about this phenomenon, and that's why I was telling Reverend John is that it almost seems like a tape that continues to play. The imprint that he was talking about. It's an infinite loop sometimes with these poor souls. And one of the things that I wanted to get at is exactly what are ghosts and what is a soul and how is that actually created. That's one of the things that I was talking to with another one of my friends who's into the metaphysical. But before I get back to you guys, I do want to go to our panel. I don't want to leave them out. And Jerry, what do you think about that story I said I just mentioned earlier?
I didn't hear it, to be honest.
You didn't hear it? Oh,
I didn't.
Man.
Oh, brutal.
You're fired.
I heard John's
I'm not
story,
Trump.
Oh,
okay.
Reverend
Well,
John's.
John's got a great story too.
But
I'll
shut up.
Oh, go ahead. That's all right, man.
No. I had a question for him, but it's okay. It's okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you go ahead and ask him? But before you do that, I want to get your take on what you feel ghosts are.
For real? I think they're a replay. It's a re-rendering of a past profile or a past character in the Matrix. It's just a reprojection of that energy, that stream of consciousness. But it's not the person. It's just a reasonable facsimile. And that goes for apparitions versus residual energy being bound to a location, which is probably a different thing. Okay, but I think the visual aspect is definitely a projection by the construct that we're in of a past profile that's been stored.
Okay.
Or kind of like a ghost driver for the computer savvy folks out there.
How about a non-player character?
There you go.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Adam, did you have a comment that you wanted to chime in on?
Sometimes when you delete software and you don't defrag the hard drive properly, you still have bits that remain. I think sometimes we're seeing apparitions and things like that. I agree with Jerry. It's a remnant in the matrix. A bit of software that didn't get deleted all the way.
That's pretty cool. Jerry, did you want to go ahead and ask Reverend John a question?
No. I forgot what it was.
Yeah. Okay. Joe, what's your take?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I agree with Jerry and Adam there, but I'm just going to add a few things here. I believe that if there's a traumatic or an extremely violent event that occurs, that the energies can be left behind, or that they can be stuck here on this plane. They can be trapped here at times. It is a rare occurrence, though, but it does happen.
That would be the residual energy that's different from an apparition, though, right?
I'm talking about an intelligence. Like, for example,
okay.
I'm talking about more of a ritualistic killing. For, something like that, where an intelligence can stay behind and basically control an area or believe that it's in control of an area.
Isn't that more of a opening a portal and binding an entity to that location with the energy of the event?
Ooh.
Yes, but I mean, there's so many different types of like how a haunting can occur, and I'm just adding to what you said.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I was just clarifying. I wanted to know.
Yeah, no, yeah, Joe. I mean, that does sound, very interesting. That's a good point, and I think Jerry was actually, just trying to reiterate, either emphasize it more.
I was trying to put
John,
it in a different way that I could understand it.
There you go.
Not that he said it wrong, just my brain works different.
Yeah, everyone's does. John, what do you say about that?
Well, I work with ghost hunters also, and one thing that I figured out a long time ago is that what ghost hunters believe are ghosts, many times they are, but many times they're what you can call onto-energetic or energetic beings that don't necessarily have a physical body in the third density 3D earth plane. So in effect, they're extra dimensionals or ultra terrestrials, that they're not necessarily ghosts. They're conscious beings that are alive. They just don't have a physical body. And often they're drawn to areas that are very positive or very negative based on events and or people that lived in these areas, and they're drawn to these areas. So a lot of ghost hunters are actually chasing ghosts. A lot of ghost hunters are actually chasing energetic beings, extra dimensionals, and ultra terrestrials, and they don't realize it. And all the equipment that they use to be able to locate the vortexes, locate the voice phenomenon, etc., it works on the energetic beings as well. So it's easy to misinterpret, and I did that for a long time before I even understood that there was a difference. So if you're ghost hunting, you're not necessarily hunting ghosts. You're hunting some kind of consciousness, and you may not even know what it is.
Well,
but you can measure it. That's for sure.
Can I jump in here real quick? Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
I just want to say that, especially with the ghost hunting shows, I think a lot of what they encounter is themselves projecting onto like the EVP tapes or the apparitions they catch.
I would buy that. I would definitely buy that.
Especially when they ask a certain question and they're expecting an answer, so their intent is really strong to get that answer back.
Yeah, so imagine I'm with a group and they're asking me to locate an entity. First, I have to rule out which ones are mine, which ones follow me everywhere, and I've got a bunch of them. And that's something that took me a number of years to be able to figure out also. So I could be in a room and I see a ghost. Well, actually, it's part of my circle that follows me. It took me a while to figure out the difference. I figured that out maybe 10 years ago. I'm 47 now. But imagine being able to see what you think are ghosts your whole life, and half the time you're seeing this circle that follows you around, and it belongs to you. It doesn't belong to anything else. So that was a learning curve that I went through about a decade ago.
Well, a comment I want to cut in real quick here, guys, and this is for you, John, is when people talk about doing clearings, and I'm sure you've been involved in this, and that involves sage and that kind of stuff. When they burn it and they move it over to different corners, if it seems like it's more of a, not so much as a spiritual thing, but more of a, I guess, metaphysical thing. Like Jerry was saying, it's part of the matrix. Why would it work then? Stuff like that, or when I don't know about exorcists, but when people come in and they say in Jesus' name and this and that, and they take off, what's that all about?
That's very hard to answer. very hard to answer. Why does it work? Well, remember I was saying a lot of the equipment that they use to measure if there is an entity in the room, it works with the ultra terrestrials, the extra dimensionals, the spirits, the ghost, etc.
Okay.
I think the same answer applies. Is that if you really are a light working being, that your prayer energy and your collective soul circle that works with you can help to clear the room no matter what it is that you've encountered. Um, I've been in situations where when I work with these groups, I'm not the best at what I do, but I am valuable and necessary. Um, this one lady named Claire, she's probably 55 years old. Um, she's the best I've ever seen by far, and she can clear any room of anything. I don't care what's in there, and
Wow.
it will be gone forever. My results are more of a mixed bag. I would say I operated a 2/3 to 3/4 clip, which is pretty good. But what does that mean? 1/3 to 1/4 of the time it didn't work. So it's a craft that you really need to work on your whole life. And the best ones I have seen are in their late 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing to me when we have all this paranormal activity going on, and you know, like you were saying, you know, the ghost hunters show up and they do their thing. A lot of people claim that it's not ghost, that it's, you know, something else, but then again, it just seems like the old tricks seem to work. Now, saying that, I'm going to find out firsthand, because I was telling Rick this, and Rick and I are really, you know, talking about doing this. When my family did come back, they brought back another story about a house that's so haunted people don't even want to walk by there. They don't even want to walk by the house. And I got the story from a family member, and I'm going to talk to some more of my family members that know more about that house, and trying not to give anything away. I do want to slate this as an investigation that's coming up. So for everyone that's listening right now, all the beyonders out there, I'm definitely going to go on an investigation. And this will be my second ghost investigation. So bear with me. I just wanted to let everyone know that. And Rick, I know you're hanging on patiently muted, and I appreciate that you called in.
Oh, it's all good.
And you know, we got a couple of minutes left before the break. Did you want to add anything else to this?
From my personal experience, I found that what really helps get rid of negative entities or whatever, it actually comes down to force of will. And if you truly believe it, and you can, you know, do the force of will. And if a person believes they don't have enough willpower, if they don't have enough strength within themselves, and they call upon, you know, whatever religious, you know, icon that they draw from, you know, whether it be Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha or you know, Ganesh, they're actually, they believe that deity will fix everything. But what I believe is their belief in their religion is actually what gives them the willpower. And at the end of the day, it ends up being the willpower of the person versus the willpower of the entity. You there?
Sorry, Rick, I had myself muted. Very good. Thank you very much for that. And if you want to hang on and listen to the rest of the show, or if you want to, I know you're driving, so it's got to be hard. You know, you're more than welcome. And John, I know you have to go because you got a lot going on and it's late where you're at. But I want to thank you again for joining us, and I'll definitely see you Wednesday. Can you go ahead and throw out your website really quick?
Yeah, johnpolkmedia.com. johnpolkmedia.com.
Very good. John, thanks again for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Talk to you soon, Dave.
We'll talk to you soon. And we'll be right back. And when we get back, we will definitely get into some more topics. And I have a beef with the New World Order. We'll talk about that when we come back. This is Beyond the Strange. I'm Dave Cruz. Don't go away.
Hey Beyonders, this is Kat from Our Precious Demise. You are listening to Beyond the Strange.
And welcome back, everybody. This is Beyond the Strange. I'm your host, Dave Cruz. Tonight's Return to the Hangouts. We're just doing our good old-fashioned hangout session here with a bunch of friends and having a great discussion tonight. I want to thank everyone again for being here. Adam, Jerry, Joe, Rick, who's on the phone right now, and earlier we had the Reverend John Pulk, and it's just been an amazing evening. I'm really glad that we're doing this. This is really great. So right now, if you are listening in the YouTube, just go to Beyond the Strange on YouTube, and you'll see that there's a live feed going. Also, you can go to my Facebook page, Dave Cruz, and there's links all over the place. Just choose the last link. That's the real one. Earlier, I had a heck of a time getting this show on there, and it wasn't until Jerry actually helped me. So, Jerry, again, thank you for helping me get this show going on Hangouts once again.
Anytime.
And I really appreciate it. But okay, so yeah, earlier, like I was saying, and you can follow us at Strange Days 2015 in the Twitterverse. The hashtag is hashtag B Strange. That's the letter B with the word strange after that. Real quick, I also want to thank everyone in the chat room over at the YouTube Live. You guys are awesome. Hi, Athena. I see you in there. There's quite a few people that joined. Spencer, Trisha, Suzanne, thank you again, everyone. Appreciate it. Also might have another caller coming on here pretty soon. But earlier I did mention, before we went to the break, I do have a beef with the New World Order, the NWO, if you will. It just seems like every day I'm hearing more and more about their agenda. I don't know if you want to call it satanic. I don't want to know if you want to call it, political. It just seems to me that there's always something in the news, and it always relates to the conspiracy that is the New World Order, and part of it, and I have to really address this. And you guys, you can put me in my place if you want. Keep me in check, whatever. But I just saw a story on Facebook that does go to a website. The website is organicandhealthy.org, and it talks about, it says, body of doctor who linked vaccines to autism found floating in river. This isn't the first time I've heard of this, where these doctors who are researching all these illnesses like autism, cancer, different diseases. And again, I don't know exactly the date of when this happened. I only know that this is on, not quite vetted, but it's not the Daily News or anything like that, or the Onion. So I want to give it a little credibility, and yeah, I'll get to you in a second, Jerry. I know you want to chime in here, but I just want to talk a little bit about this. But it does, what I'm trying to get at is there's been more than just one doctor found dead over doing research, and I highly believe it's the work of the New World Order. Jerry, I know you want to come in and say something really quick, and after that, I want to get to Joe.
I just want to say that is a true story.
Okay.
There have been over 60 killed, dead. Killed. They've been over 60 holistic doctors have died in the last year and a half.
So you do agree with that there is something going on, that there is something to this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There, a lot of them are suspicious. The one guy in the river, there was a guy 2 months ago. I could look up the name if you need it, but he was found, I think in San Francisco or somewhere, maybe in Washington State, up that way, like completely face down in water in a place where nobody could actually be. He couldn't have fallen that way. It's just, there's a lot of craziness around the deaths of these guys, and it does kind of really point towards, big pharma guys, which, could also be the same as the NWO guys.
Well, I definitely think it's definitely related and tied in. And Joe,
can I add one more thing to this? To the big
sure.
pharma thing is with the purchase of Monsanto by Bayer, right? Bayer used to be IG Farben, which is Nazi Germany, or Nazi. They provided the Nazis a lot of stuff during the war. So that's kind of where everything's coming back home to roost now.
It does seem like that. That's true. And Joe, we've talked extensively, especially about the medical marijuana. I don't know if you want to call it phenomenon, but definitely it seems like there is some kind of legislation that's happening, and not only with marijuana. There's also been a stop to using this herb called kratom. I don't know if you've heard of kratom before, but it's also an herb to help with what's the word? It's not
opiate withdrawal.
Yes, that, but inflammation. That's what it is. So, Joe, what's your experience with or your research on big pharma and how they're trying to do away with all these natural types and alternative medicines?
Well, I can really only speak for the for the medical marijuana industry. It's pretty obvious right now how the feds are fighting tooth and nail. They don't want it legalized on a federal scale right now. They keep saying no, no, no. They don't want to move forward with the medical tests, and they don't want to legalize it on a federal level. So we're just going to have to keep legalizing it on a state-to-state basis. I think the American public just sees what's going on. It really just speaks for itself. They're really polluting a lot of Americans right now with a lot of opiates. I have noticed that. So I have not heard of kratom. I just looked it up. Very interesting. So that does tie in with the opiate problem that I just spoke about that has gone rampant here in the U.S., both with prescribed meds, and there's a heroin problem here. There's a heroin epidemic problem here in the United States. I'm sure you guys have heard about that on the news recently. But it's because the prescription drugs are just getting too expensive for people. And, people don't want to do this stuff. So they're trying to find, how do I get off of this nightmare that I never asked for in the first place? So they're turning to natural alternatives like cannabis or like kratom, you mentioned, or like I believe it's called libogaine, which is a natural plant that they use down in Mexico. There's a few clinics down there that have shown a lot of promising treatments for opiate addicts. You take this plant, it basically, to put it into words, resets your brain. It's almost a psychedelic trip of some sort. It resets your body, it resets your mind, and you could basically say you naturally wash the addiction out of your body. The feds do not want you knowing about this stuff. They want you to keep taking this poison, and they want the invisible leash around you.
Right. And Adam, what is your comment on Rick, did you want to chime in real quick?
Yeah. Now, well, one of the things that they've done up here in Washington State with the medicinal card, because my dad, he has really pretty gnarly arthritis, and I have arthritis in my neck, which is really not fun. But the thing is if you take, you can, and I know Joe will know this one, but you get these prescription medications. In fact, actually, I'm sorry to kind of be a little scattered here. My favorite comedian, Billy Connolly, he has Parkinson's. He actually stopped taking his medication for Parkinson's because the side effects were worse than the disease. And that's one of the things with marijuana. Other than really craving gelato ice cream, there aren't really any side effects. And that's one, they're afraid of that getting out, and then more people are going to be going towards that rather than these medications that cost millions of dollars to research and make and all that. So one of the things that they've done up here in Washington State is when you originally got your medicinal card, it was like $50. You got your medicinal card, you could grow like 30 plants, and you didn't have to pay the recreational tax, obviously, because it's medical. Well, they've revised that recently. They reduced the number of plants that you can grow down to like 15, and you're still paying a lot of taxes. So my dad, who did have a medicinal marijuana card for, his eyes and for his arthritis and everything, he just said, forget it, because one, he has to pay the copay to go to his doctor. So his doctor says, yes, you have this issue, and this is what I prescribe. So then you have to make your appointment with your quote unquote, forgive the term, lead doctor, and pay a $50 visitation. He goes, yeah, you have arthritis or what have you. And what's the deal with traditional medicine? Well, I don't like it. You explain your reasoning for wanting to have medicinal marijuana. He says, okay, here's your prescription, try it out. But now you have to come back to that guy within a week, pay another $50. Then you have to pay, it was something like $150 for the card. So they took it from being a very economically feasible way of getting a medication without side effects to being this long, drawn-out dog and pony show that you have to do once a year. And if somebody is, like, say, going through treatment for cancer, all their money is going towards treatment for cancer, chemotherapy, and all of that. So they're it's like they're trying to price it away to where it's cheaper to go with these quote unquote traditional medications and make it even more of a pain. And it seems to me it's either greed, but also it seems like sabotage to me. And I would not put it past Big Pharma to do something like that, because all of these millions upon millions of dollars that they spend, and now basically a plant that can grow in a ditch with no effort can take care of a lot of issues. They do not like that.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Rick. And when we were talking I don't know how long ago it was, maybe 2-3 months ago, we wanted to put together a medical marijuana show, cannabis show, because it seemed to have been helping some of these cancer patients. One in particular who unfortunately is no longer with us. But caller, do you want to go ahead and put yourself on mute, please?
Yeah, but also it for me it helped with my sleep disorders.
I'm sorry. That's we were having some difficulties. The other caller was having some problems there, but we got you, Rick. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that it's also helped me with sleep disorders, and so I mean, it's a pretty amazing plant, because I mean it does help out with quite a few things, and it hasn't really helped my neck as much, but where it's really helped me is with sleep disorders, insomnia, and also something that's basically kind of akin to sleepwalking. And that's actually the benefit that I receive from it, because I can actually get real, honest-to-God sleep, and I can actually get to REM sleep, which is something I haven't really been able to do for years.
Right. Actually, real quick, Casper Parks has just joined us, and he's in the Hangouts. And Casper, thank you for joining us, and welcome to Beyond the Strange.
Hopefully everybody can hear me all right.
Oh, you sound great.
Yeah, no, I'm in Michigan, and they just put a petition in with over 300,000 signatures for recreational marijuana, and they needed 180,000 signatures to get on the ballot. Then the state legislature, which is Republican controlled at the moment, but both parties are just as guilty, decided to change the petition law and make it retroactive. And basically, and they fought it in court, the legalized marijuana people. They fought it in court and lost. So it's not going to be on the ballot in Michigan this fall. And really, when it comes down to it, is how much money, a campaign, let's call it bribery money, have these politicians taken from big pharma, big pharmaceutical companies, the prison industrial complex, and not to mention law enforcement. And when we really think about it, and this is pretty harsh. I was thinking about this the other day, is, cannabis has been on the planet, that we know of in use for 6 to 10,000 years. And it's possible, I don't know if this for a fact, though, that during biblical times, some of their clothing could have been made from hemp for all we know. They probably burned hemp oil. And,
exactly.
And what the police have become, law enforcement, they had, we're going around arresting people for cannabis. They become enforcers of corporate law. I used to say religious law, but I'm going to back off that now. It's corporate law because these politicians are taking campaign contributions, from big pharma and, prison industrial complex and that. When we legalize marijuana, if they did it at the federal level, my suggestion would be you're going to have to throw a bone out to law enforcement, and you're going to have to. And I think that part of the taxation of it, the money should be split up between, education, sobriety ads, encouraging the youth not to get high, not to get drunk, that sort of thing. Education, and throw some of it back to law enforcement. For example, Colorado, Washington State, Alaska, so on and so forth, they have legalized marijuana. If they're paying into the fund through taxes, then that some of the money collected should go back to those states. However, states where it's not legalized should get zip because they're not paying into the fund. But at this point, I'm going to start saying it that the police, by enforcing cannabis laws, are enforcing corporate law because it's the corporations that don't want it. Big pharmaceutical. Really, I'm going to start saying that. I don't know, maybe it'll catch. I'm not real sure, and look at what at the hyena that's running for the GOP party right now. The hyena, wants to bring stop and frisk nationwide. That suspends the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. To do that, you have to practically declare martial law. I mean, we're already in a virtual police state with, the government spying on everybody, but that's off topic. Sorry. I started calling Clinton a jackal and Trump a hyena. I'm sorry. One's jackal, the other's a hyena.
Don't be sorry, man.
and the whole thing is rigged. And, and then you look at it, they're doing the stopgap budget again this week, another stopgap budget. And Congress, keep in mind we're in an election year. Okay, so a few months ago they threw legislation in for the budget in December, where they're going to allow the VA in states where there's medical marijuana to speak with the patients about it who are vets. And it would be nice if they allow them to write prescriptions. But this is in an election year where they know it's a hot topic for the veterans because they want access. And they're being denied access. If you get tested positive for an illegal drug, you could lose your VA medical. You could lose your VA disability. They wouldn't do it right away. They'd give you warning, give you counseling, et cetera. But you could conceivably lose everything by testing positive for marijuana.
And I want to add something really quick too, Casper. I don't know if you heard about this, but they're also talking about firearms.
Oh yeah.
If you own a firearm or actually when you want to register for a firearm, now they're saying they're putting on the questionnaire: do you use metal or marijuana or any type of opiate? And if you say yes, then you're a junkie and you're denied. If you say no, you're lying and you're denied. So now they're using this platform to do this agenda with doing away with the Second Amendment, and in my opinion, that's just heinous. That they're doing this, and people aren't catching on. But
people don't understand the Veterans Administration already provides a list to the FBI for background checks for purchase of firearms. The VA provides that for people who are receiving psychiatric treatment, so that when you get a background check to purchase a gun, the VA, if you're receiving any type of psychiatric counseling or medication, it's possible that you're on that list and you'd be denied to purchase a firearm because you're mentally unstable. How easy to get on the list, how hard to get off the list, who knows? But that list is real. That list is real. And it's the veterans who are trained to fight. So if there was a need to fight back against a totalitarian regime, that's taken over this country, veterans are our best bet. And if you got a large number of them that can't buy a handgun or a rifle or anything, they're going to be unarmed. I don't know. That's a
Oh yeah,
conspiracy. It's just an interesting notation. But as far
but
as
it's not conspiracy.
it's
That's
not.
the thing.
Yeah.
Hey, can I throw a thing in here real quick? Think about who does the background checks
Okay.
for all the gun shops. Who controls that data? Well, yeah, I know it's the ATF, but it's also there are the ATF themselves aren't doing the checks. It's a company that's licensed to do it.
Oh yeah.
So these people have an opportunity to control that information. I just want to throw that out.
Yeah. But I didn't want to run off the cannabis thing, but it really actually in reality it's we have law enforcement that's enforcing corporate law because they don't want cannabis out there. I mean, how many people have overdosed in the last 100 years from cannabis? Zip, none.
It's
Zero.
almost impossible.
And if you're a Christian, because a lot of they'll get on that whole Christian thing, and you have to look at it this way: is that I can't give you the exact location of the scripture, but I can get pretty close to it, where it talks about he who practices witchcraft shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Well, what that witchcraft actually from the original Greek or Hebrew translates to the word pharmaceutical. And it's, so it's people who are abusing pharmaceutical, that sort of thing. And back in the Middle Ages, they changed the word to mean witchcraft because they're on their big, Salem witch trials and blah, blah, blah. They're going after the pagans. So that's why they changed the word. But I don't know that I necessarily consider cannabis to be a pharmaceutical because it's not man-made.
Right.
It grows naturally, and and look at all the good that it does. I mean, it stops seizures with the oils for children. My nephew was just diagnosed with something sorts of an L. Hodgkin's cancer, 3rd stage. He's like 34.
Oh yeah, is it Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Yes, correct. 3rd stage.
Okay. And
it took months for him through the Affordable Care Act to actually get the diagnosis. But at any rate, but it cures some forms of cancer. That one, I don't know. Now we're hearing that it might shrink brain tumors. It might help with Alzheimer's. So, I mean,
yes.
if God in his mighty wisdom put this plan on earth for man to use for pains for arthritis as they age and all sorts of other ailments, man thinks, our humankind thinks that, we know better than God. You know what? You don't. You don't. And, it's just, to me, and you look at what Michigan did. Bam, can't have it on the ballot. We're making it retroactive. There's not enough time to get to the Supreme Court for another appeal. And it's just like, my word, they did that with fracking too, by the way, same thing here, to keep it off the ballot. And it's like, in Michigan now, they're clamping down on medical marijuana so severely that it's difficult to find a provider if you can get a medical marijuana card. And I don't know what they're going to do. Well, back to the VA thing, where, okay, so in the legislation for this coming December is, and if Obama signs it with the budget, the VA will be allowed to discuss medical marijuana or cannabis with VA patients without being punished. There's some rumor they're going to allow the VA to write the prescriptions. I don't know if that'll happen. But we're in an election year, and December is when the budget gets signed. It's possible, because they'll renegotiate that budget, that they'll pull that out of the budget, and that they only threw it in there now so the Republicans and the Democrats or whoever can say, we're for medical cannabis for the veterans. We just introduced this bill. It'll be signed into law when Obama signs it in December. Who's to say they're not going to pull it out of the legislation before it gets up to the Oval Office? Does that make any sense, or like kind of playing it?
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting, to say the least, what's going to happen in this election year, and we can get into a little bit of that in our next segment. But we do got a break, so why don't we go ahead and do that? Let's go ahead and take our final break, and then we'll we'll wrap things up here in a bit. This is Beyond the Strange. I'm your host, Dave Cruz, and it's the return of the Hangouts. Topic discussion. It's been a great panel so far, guys. Really appreciate everyone being here tonight. And we will be right back. Don't go away.
Every region of the world and most countries can go back in their history and trace their origins, traditions, and religions to a creator god or an angel from the sky, the stars, heaven, or even underground from the underworld. This is the common story of extraterrestrials seeding our planet. My name is Reverend John M. Pulk. I am an international metaphysical minister, a Reiki master teacher, and a medium. My book is Yahweh, the biblical God is an alien. The premise of my book is that there is a real God and that Yahweh is a creator God alien who is indicating he is ready to reveal his alien origins to humanity at this time.
Howdy, I'm Spaceboy.
And I'm Serlana.
And we want to tell you about our show, Spaceboy Universe, on Saturday nights.
Our show covers history, technology, gaming, pop culture, and fringe science.
So join us on SpaceboyUniverse.com Saturday nights at 8 p.m. And remember, it's Space Boys Universe, and you're in it.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Beyond the Strange. I'm your host, Dave Cruz. You can follow us on Twitter at Strange Days 2015. Call-in number is 707-200-3520. Once again, the call-in number is 707-200-3520. Or you can Skype with the Skype to the Skype ID, Strange Days 2015. Just make sure you mute yourselves until I can get to you, and then I'll definitely bring you in if you have a question or a comment, or if you want to just say hi. Hello. No problem. But it's been a great evening so far, and once again, I just want to thank our panel. We have Joe Cerletti from Zero Dark Radio. We have Jerry Cthulhu, and Casper Parks, author, and also longtime friend Adam Tarsis, who's in the works of his projects. And I also have waiting for us in Skype another new friend of mine that I just met, and his name is Wolfman Mike. Hey, Wolfman, how's it going? You can unmute now, Wolfman.
Unmute. I'm here. How are you, brother?
How you doing, man? How's it going out there in the Canadian tundra?
Oh, it's beyond strange out here, man.
Right on.
It's just, yeah, there's so much no tundra left.
I'll bet. Hey, thanks for calling in, man. We really appreciate you calling in. And Wolfman has a show on Spreaker as well. And what is the name of your show again, Wolfman?
That's the Monster Castle Paranormal Radio Show.
Right on. Cool. Yeah, I heard a little bit of it when you were interviewing Athena Zub, and I have to say it was like listening to a Halloween movie at the same time you're being interviewed. It's like Johnny Carson meets Halloween. So there you go. But
like Alice Cooper meets the Paranormal Talk Radio Show.
There you go. But yeah, it's pretty awesome, man. So again,
you like it? It's great.
I dig it, man. I really do. Right on. And
I do some different stuff. We do like a little bit of comedy, and I throw some sound effects in and some original music. So I try to mix it up,
Right on.
And if anybody wants to call in, I let them take the show pretty much.
Yeah, I tend to do that sometimes too, but I'm learning, that you gotta reel in the show once in a while. You gotta reel it back. So, but anyways, when is your show on again?
Well, we usually go on Saturday nights after End of Days Radio. In that time slot. So when End of Days Radio ends at around 3 a.m., that's Eastern time, my time. Where are you at? California time? It would be 12.
Okay, yeah, 12 o'clock California time. Yeah, End of Days Radio, Michael Deacon. I'm definitely going to have to get him on the show as well to call in one of these days.
He's on my last show, actually. Michael Deacon called in on my last show.
Yeah, great guy. Met him at Contacting the Desert. That was an awesome experience and a real trippy one at the same time. So yeah, he's really cool. But yeah, man, we've been getting into some pretty cool subjects. The last subject that I wanted to get into here before before the end of the show is time travel, and I can already tell people. I can see him in the chat room. I can see him, here in the Google Hangouts. That they're all calling bunk when it comes to the Mandela effect. And the only reason I'm bringing up the Mandela effect is because it has been out circulating among Facebook and Twitter and all these other different social medias. And, it hasn't really been getting a lot of attention. But when I first heard about the Mandela effect, I was listening to Art Bell when he came back, when he went to Sirius Radio, and he had a show. It was a time traveler show, and he had a call in from a guy named Florida Jim. Now, Florida Jim was describing what happened to him, that he had somehow sent an email to John Teeter, and John Teeter is somewhat of a legend, an urban legend on the internet when it comes to time travel. I'm not sure if anyone has proven that it's a hoax or if it's still unproven. I haven't heard anything, but apparently, he's a time traveler, and he came back, and then he went on a website, and he went into a chat room, and people were talking to him. He was giving all these predictions and stuff. Now, I'm not sure how many of them came true. I think a couple of them came close, but it's a very intriguing story nonetheless. So Florida Jim sends him an email, and what happens is he's driving home one night, and he says that there were along the way, there was like a market, a building that he never recognized before, like a Walgreens or something like that. And he was just looking at it. He goes back it goes back the same way another day, and it's gone. It's like it's a lot. It's not even, there's nothing there. And so I don't know what you call that. I don't know if you want to call it tripping on acid or, bonking on, your head and getting a concussion. But he said things like that were happening to him also in his timeline started changing, and that in his timeline, in his reality, I believe it was the lead singer of Soundgarden. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Chris Cornell. He had died. He had died of a drug overdose. And I'm thinking, wait a second, I never heard of that. He didn't die. And then come to find out, Florida Jim's talking to Art, and he's telling him, he said, then he finds out that Chris Cornell's still alive, but that Florida Jim had actually listened to a bunch of recordings after Chris Cornell died that never was published. It's just a very, very interesting story. It's very, very cool at the same time. But he also talks about the Mandela effect, and this is why I'm talking about it tonight. This is even before I heard this episode of Art Bell and Florida Jim talking about it. I remember Nelson Mandela. I remember, or at least I believed that he had died years ago before he had died just recently in, I think it was 2013. And that was very strange to me when I found out that he died, because I remember saying it right off the top. I'm like, wait a second, I thought he already died. And to me, that was just really bizarre, and a lot of people shared the same thing. Now, I'm going to go right to Jerry, because I told him he was going to be last, because he's just like, virtually elbowing me in the gut about this.
No, I'm not.
Jerry, why do you think that the Mandela, and I'm not saying it's true, I'm not saying it's not true, but you definitely just have it in for this Mandela effect?
No, I don't. It's something I thought that was real, and I looked into it, and I just found there's really no proof. But the thing is, if it's true, there can't be any proof, right? But the things that people are reporting are generally misremembered or incorrect, right?
Okay.
Now, I will say there's one possibility. There was a CERN scientist, I don't remember his name, I could look it up, who said that when they first turned the machine on, they weren't sure what was going to happen, or when they did the first collisions at the high energy, I think it was 1,000 tera electrovolts or something like Tesla. I forget the measurement unit, TeVs. Mm-hmm. It was 1,000. They smashed lead molecules together instead of hadron molecules. So you're talking about an atomic weight of like 100 times greater. And a scientist said they weren't sure what was going to happen when they did that. He said that it could destroy the universe instantly and recreate it, and we wouldn't even know it. That's heavy. I mean, if that could happen, then sure, then the Mandela effect could happen. But that's a very remote chance, and again, unprovable. So the point that it's unprovable means it's a rabbit hole that you'll never get out of. So why bother?
Right. I mean, but it's just one of those things. And actually, I'd like to hear Adam chime in on this, because we've actually had a few conversations about this sort of topic in time travel. And I also want to relate it to the possibility of Montauk and what they were doing. Because to me, it seems like if anybody goes back in time, there's, and if there's even a slight possibility, then our realities are changing, or our dimensions are they're shifting. I mean, Adam, can you give me some kind of light on what might be happening? Adam, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, the mic would not unmute. It was being stubborn.
Happens to me too.
The Mandela effect, I have to agree that if it's a situation where our reality is unmade and remade, we wouldn't even know the difference. It would be nothing to us. Wouldn't even be a blip. And so I think it is somewhat unprovable if that is the case. But again, the chances of that happening are so astronomical that I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. I do happen to think that with time travel, that there's time travel, and then there's like stepping sideways onto another into another time frame, or basically into another dimension that's time is running at a different rate, or is
Mm-hmm.
perceived at a different rate than say, like, if this is your native timeline, maybe you're if you're going back in time, you're not really going back in our time, but you're going back into another time frame, to a parallel time that's running concurrent with ours, but at a different rate of speed, so to speak, as far as how it's perceived and experienced. And so you would then experience it that way, I would think. And I think that's a possibility. With time travel, I kind of feel like, you know, time is something that we increasingly are discovering, or theorizing about, that is somewhat an illusionary thing, because it's really based all in our own conscious perception. But if time is a force, if time is some type of ever-moving universal constant, then I think that the future, the past, and the present, since they exist, they would have to exist simultaneously. I think it is equally likely that as you have many possible or predominant futures, you have many possible or predominant pasts. And so if your futures can change, then your pasts can also change. So if the past is collapsing in on itself and small details are rearranging themselves, again, we would not be able to prove this, because there would be no physical evidence, because we and everything else around us would shift with the entire environment of our collective time frame. So that's my only input.
That's a great input. I mean, that's something I wouldn't have never put together. Joe, do you have anything to chime in on about this?
Yeah, basically what Adam just said, but also I've heard a lot of experts say that we already know the future in our hearts as human beings. Like, it's almost like the future is already written, but it can be changed. And occasionally the future is changed. So I think potentially the Mandela effect, a possible explanation for it is when a major event changes, or a destiny changes, or a major life path changes, we feel it.
Yes, and I agree with that. And I believe that something that, like, a good, or not a good, but a something that like Fukushima, when the earthquake happened, and it supposedly knocked our planet off its axis, or it changed something. But what caused that earthquake? And like what Jerry was saying is, I believe it has something to do with CERN. And a lot of these supposedly cyclone-looking wormholes that have been floating up in the sky. I've been seeing those on YouTube and different videos lately, and I really believe that those are happening. Yeah, exactly, Jerry. Project Bluebeam. It's definitely something that. That's going on that we're not aware of, that no one's going. Mainstream's not going. I was surprised when mainstream actually brought up the fact that that we had something happen off the coast. What was it, last year when we had, or a few months ago when we had that supposedly a test rocket. But to me, it didn't look like a test rocket. It looked a lot more like it was some kind of a bizarre portal. That's the only way I could look at it. I'm trying to get someone on the Skype right now, and so bear with me. But Casper, do you want to chime in on the time travel Mandela phenomenon?
It's interesting. If there were changes, it might pop up like, we'll see it in the Mandela effect to a degree, possibly. I know that, the way we perceive time and the way that someone else might perceive time, we look left to right and forward, and we take in a view. If there are people living outside of time as we perceive it, they would look at time the same way that we look left to right and taking the view. They're taking the same view of time by looking, it's the best example I can give, looking left to right. And I think that there's entities that exist outside of time as we perceive it. I don't want to keep your Skype guy from coming in there.
Well, that's all right. It for some reason it's not really coming on. And Dan, if you're listening, if you can hear me, why don't you go ahead and just try calling in on the phone line? The Skype ID is just giving me a lot of issues right now. I have no idea what's going on there, but the number is, again, it's 707-200-3520. Why don't you try calling in on that number before we got to go? We have only a few minutes left. So, that's my take on the Mandela. I don't know what to say about that. I do know that it's interesting, to say the least. But we've got a few minutes, guys. Do you have anything that you want to add before we go?
I got something.
Go ahead, Wolfman.
I was thinking about when you said small black holes. I remember a friend of mine that worked with Patrick Flanagan that had a small laboratory where they actually developed a singularity black hole which became sentient. And who knows, maybe that's little experiments like this in people's basements. Maybe that's caused things like the Norway spiral, and who knows. But also I'm thinking that the Mandela effect in general could actually be just our own dream state, our own, everyone has a different version of reality, but we can all create reality.
Hmm. Yeah.
You dig that?
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. I mean, that's kind of the same scenario with these tulpas that people talk about. That when you get enough people to believe in something, that it actually comes to life, or it becomes a reality. So that's
like
that's a possibility. That is a possibility.
How they meditate and then move the boulder the up the hill in Tibet there.
Okay, I'd never heard of that, but
Wow.
I wouldn't be surprised. But anyways,
Well, apparently they do it once a year. They do this secret meditation where all the monks get together, and there's a special hill where the sound and they make a sound, and it's through sound that the boulder levitates, through sound vibrations bouncing off rock formations and in a special place and using a certain frequency, and the huge boulder lifts up.
Whoa. Yeah, I'll have to look into that for sure. Right on. Hey, Wolfman, thanks for joining the show tonight. I really appreciate it. And
Great show. Hey, thanks for having me on, man.
Hey, absolutely. And I really looking forward to catching your show sometime. And I don't know, maybe I'll call in on yours.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, actually, when I was trying to get you to on my show.
Right on. Okay, well, we'll definitely talk some more about that off the air. So, hey, thanks again, man. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Awesome show.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. So, yeah, before we wrap up, guys, Adam, is there anything that you'd like to touch on before we take off?
I think this has been a really fantastic conversation. So I think the only thing I would like to add is that I think when we were talking about the possibilities of like when CERN was activated, maybe the universe was destroyed and remade. I don't think it would really matter when CERN came online. If the activity happened, it would obviously move forward and backwards. So it would change everything, I would think. I think definitely we have some serious problems with the environment, with the chemtrails, and with all the insufficiencies within the framework of our resources and how they're distributed and handled. Mm-hmm. So, we've touched on a lot of things tonight. It's been a really, really good show, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Adam. Definitely look forward to having you back on in the future shows. Casper, was there anything that you'd like to touch on before we head out?
No, thanks for inviting me. And I was listening to the show earlier. I had some headphones on, was doing some errands and stuff. So, but covered a lot of topics. I think it was really, really good and interesting. And, thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Casper, your website is casperparks.com, right?
Right. Yeah. And at the time of this airing being the 1st of October, end of September, the Halloween special is my first novel that I published, which was Perceptual Threshold, which takes place over a Halloween weekend. That is free as an ebook at iTunes, Barnes & Noble, Google Play. Amazon is still 99 cents, but it's free. You can find a link on my Twitter feed for it, which is people can click and go download, leave a review. Keep in mind, my first book has some errors in it, but it's still a really, really, really good read. And it almost went to film in 1992. So, but it was $110 million to film it, not including actors. So that got squashed. But
yeah, whoa, yeah, I can see that. But hey, I'm still reading Perceptual Threshold, and I'm digging it. And everyone go out there and get the free ebook, man. Check it out. You'll love Casper's books. I can definitely vouch for that. It's pretty awesome. And thanks for joining the show tonight, Casper. Jerry, any last comments, thoughts, remarks?
Everything that everyone else said. And thank you, too. That was a great panel. I loved it. And, thank you for inviting me.
And when can we catch your show on your YouTube channel?
When I start it, damn it. No, I haven't picked a date yet. I don't have. It's going to be an open conversation, so everyone's invited. First come, first serve. But we'll have a topic that we'll stay on. So
I'll be there. Right on.
Yeah, no time limit. We're just going to talk and go live and BS for 5-6 hours. Doesn't matter.
That's awesome, dude. Right on. Yeah. Thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Appreciate it, Joe. You're great, man. Thanks for coming on last minute. When's your show and where can we find it?
Yeah, Dave, my channel is on YouTube. I'm on social media at Zero Dark Radio, Zero Dark Radio. Give me a follow. I am going to Los Angeles tomorrow to film with a film crew to talk about UFOs and stuff. It's going to be really cool. So please give me a follow on social media. Hopefully be back soon, Dave. I had a really fun time tonight. This is cool.
Yeah, I had a great time, everybody. It's been a long time since I did a Hangouts. Adam and I have been talking about doing a Hangouts for quite a while, and it just has to happen to be when YouTube decides to take over Hangouts. And I had a hell of a time getting it going, but like I said, Jerry came to the rescue, so we got that taken care of. And now Hangouts is probably going to be, part of Beyond the Strange. Definitely it'll be a Friday night gig, if anything. So thanks again to everybody. And I want to remind everyone that the regular showtime is on Sundays, and that's at 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. You can find us on Spreaker. Also, we stream at the website www.beyondthestrange.com. You can email me at dave@beyondthestrange.com. Also, I'm on Twitter at JustDave70. You can follow us again on Strange Days 2015. And follow our Facebook page, Google Plus, YouTube channel, all Beyond the Strange. And once again, I want to thank everyone in the chat. Right on, you guys. This chat has been amazing. Dan, Lisa, what's up? My ninja sister. Jerry's in there also. C. Denver, Trisha, Suzanne. You know, you guys rock. It's Athena. Dennis made it. Right on. You guys are great. Yeah, this was, like I said, this was just a last minute thing. So, right on. And just want to remind everyone that we have Margot Matias coming on the show on Sunday night, this Sunday. So, once again, you guys rock. And remember, don't be a stranger. Just be strange. Hasta.